Asked, and we now move to the next question. Lord Moylan.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask questions standing my name on the order paper.
Minister Baroness Williams.
My Lords, today of all days remember Sir David Amess, who tragically died carrying out his duties as a public servant. Our thoughts and prayers are with his loved ones, as well as all of those involved in scenes of traumatic injury. Decisions regarding the management of such situations remain an operational issue for the emergency services involved. There are no plans to establish a multi-professional strategy on this issue.
Lord Moylan.
My Lords, the tragic death of Sir David Amess brought to national attention a problem that experts and academics in the field of disaster and emergency response have recognised for some time, namely the lack of a considered approach to the role of ministers of religion and their access to victims at end of life in disasters and emergencies. While I welcome the fact that the Archbishop of Westminster and the Metropolitan Police Commissioner have opened a dialogue on this topic, would my noble friend agree that a national standard is required, and will she undertake a study preliminary to that of other jurisdictions such as Israel, Italy, and even of Northern Ireland, where practice tends to be more nuanced and accommodating?
Well, I certainly think there are lessons to be learned from other jurisdictions, like my noble friend says, and I totally empathised with the situation that both David Amess's family and indeed the police found themselves in during the course of that dreadful incident. And I hope that, and I fully think, given the people who are involved, that I think a sensible and pragmatic conclusion will be arrived at through the discussions.
Lord Anderson of Swansea.
My Lords, the noble Lord has spoken with compassion, but is there not a danger that the attendance of ministers of religion at the scene of an accident could hamper the work of the emergency services? Surely, if there are serious injuries, the victim will be taken to hospital, where they can, if desired, call on the services of the excellent chaplaincy service, which works 24 hours in the day.
The noble Lord is, of course, right that hospital chaplains operate 24 hours a day in hospitals. My noble friend's question, of course, was around Sir David Amess, who sounds like he was on the point of death, and his family would have liked the last rites for him from a Catholic priest. But the noble Lord is correct to point out that the criteria involved in such incidents for the police to consider are, of course, protection of life, the risks at the scene, and, as he says, the preservation of evidence at the scene.
The Lord Bishop of Coventry.
My Lords, I greatly welcome the joint study group announced by the Cardinal Archbishop. May I ask the Minister whether she would agree that good outcomes of that study would include both further training and education to ensure police officers understand the significance of spiritual comfort at the point of death for the dying of whatever faith, and also an increased role for police chaplaincy?
Well, I'm sure that what will come out of that group will be considerations of whether any changes are required to the guidance issued to police officers faced with such situations. In terms of hospital chaplains, I know that they are available round the clock to cater for a range of different needs and provide such comfort both during the period of illness and, of course, at the point of death.
Moynihan.
My Lords, the circumstances surrounding access for the local priest to be with Sir David in his final hours put everyone concerned into an exceptionally difficult position. Will my noble friend the Minister look at the US model, where emergency managers can identify and engage with faith-based groups in emergency preparedness activities, building partnerships with faith-based groups to establish protocols for use at the scene of serious injuries, and integrating faith leaders into emergency situations involving serious injury?
Well, I'll certainly take my noble friend's point back, and I know that the College of Policing are welcoming engagement with faith community leaders, or indeed others who've got concerns about the current authorised professional practice, to understand views and consider possible next steps where the issue is concerned.
Lord Paddick.
My Lord, surely there's a difference between the perpetrator sitting at the scene of a stabbing, waiting to be arrested, and an explosion where forensic recovery is essential. Can the Minister not bring together faith leaders and police leaders nationally to discuss the potential use of discretion in appropriate cases?
Well, the Noble Lord is right in the sense that it sounds like the perpetrator was standing there waiting to be arrested, but I do think that there has got to be a framework around these things, and of course forensic preservation is crucial at such scenes, even where it is apparently clear what has been going on. But I'm sure that the group will consider such things as the Noble Lord is proposing.
Lord Cormack.
My Lords, I know this is an incredibly difficult one, but we can carry donor cards and things. Would it not be possible to consider the possibility of compiling a register of those of us who would wish, if on the point of death, to receive the last rites? Because I'm sure that would bring great comfort to many families.
Well, of course, we're talking here about the point of death of someone who was killed in very unusual circumstances. My family know what I would want, and I'm sure noble lords in this house, their families would know what they would want. But I think there is a point there about a pragmatism and a consideration of considering someone's last wishes at the scene of a crime.
Baroness Masham of Wilton.
My Lords, in these difficult times, is it not possible people's spiritual needs as well as their physical ones are supported in times of serious injury or illness and are adhered to if possible? Could the Home Office and the Department of Health and Social Care work together and send a directive out advising on these matters?
So I think that the group that's led by the National Police Chiefs Council and joined by the Catholic Church and the College of Policing will determine what such a framework is going to look like. It was a surprise to me that actually this had not come up before, and therefore it needs some thinking, and whether changes are required to the guidance issued to police faced with such situations.
Our thoughts too are very much with the family and friends of Sir David Amess, and particularly today. As has been said, Cardinal Vincent Nichols and the Metropolitan Police Commissioner have agreed to create a group reviewing last rites access for priests at crime scenes, and presumably there is a need to ensure a crime scene remains protected and not disturbed, and making sure that the person seeking access is who they say they are. First, has this matter of such access, or lack of it, for ministers of religion been an issue of concern before, and if so, with representatives of which faiths? And second, is the question of such access presently covered by College of Policing or other guidelines?
Well, in terms of has this been an issue before, it doesn't seem to have really come up as an issue before, and that is precisely why this group is meeting, to see that if there are any gaps in the guidance issued to police when dealing with such incidents.
Fox of Buckley.
My Lords, one of the most cruel aspects of the lockdown was the denial of visits from priests giving last rites to those dying in care homes, and for Catholics at least that was as awful as not seeing beloved family. The official advice was say prayers by Zoom. Would the noble Lord note that while there's an Amos amendment as part of the Police and Crime Bill, this is less a regulatory legislative matter and more a deficit of cultural capital when it comes to Christian practices? And would the noble Lord Baroness note the over-technocratic approach illustrated by some of the replies today misses what can really matter in society?
Well, not only do I empathise with what really matters to some people at the point of death, it made me think of my own situation. If I was in such a situation, I would want a priest there. But absolutely, it is now. I'm very glad that Cardinal Nichols is meeting with the MPCC, and that group will consider the more nuanced approach that I think can be reflected in police guidance when faced with such a situation.
My Lords, the time allowed for this question has elapsed. That concludes oral questions for today.